Earlier this week, I was reviewing a will and an application for probate, and this particular will was handwritten. That's called a holographic will. So maybe you've wondered, can I handwrite my own will? Well, yeah, you can. In fact, in Texas, the process is pretty simple. There's only two requirements, really. It needs to be 100% in your own handwriting, and it needs to be signed by you. And it ought to be dated. And that's it. You could simply take a pen, pad of paper, and get that thing taken care of. However, just because you can do it, that may not mean that you should do it. So let me give you some things to think about, some potential consequences to be aware of if you handwrite your own will. Number one, you might accidentally disinherit somebody. And I think this would come about because you don't use the right terminology in the will, or the word that you use may have a different legal meaning than what you think it does. And perhaps somebody is disinherited, and that could be really disastrous. Or you might not designate an executor, or maybe you don't designate the right person to be the executor. And again, you might create a scenario where your family's having to come to grips with who's going to be the executor of this estate. You might inadvertently require there be a dependent administration. I think this would come about because, again, the right terminology is not used in the document, and that dependent administration can greatly impact the cost and the time of probate, the length of time of probate. You might unknowingly not provide for a complete distribution of your estate. And that would mean that the will controls some assets, and maybe the Texas intestate laws would control other assets. So your goal of having a simple, easy, maybe inexpensive estate plan may be really blown up, because that can lead to some great cost to get things taken care of. The will, it might be ambiguous. And that might lead to a long and expensive dispute amongst your family members trying to figure out, what did you really mean by this sentence here in the third paragraph? So a lot of times a handwritten will, while it's intended to be simple and less expensive, it might result in a dispute amongst your family. It might result in making Christmas and Thanksgiving a little bit more uncomfortable for families. So yes, you can do it. But I think a more important question is, just because you can do it, should you do it?